Hi everyone. I want to talk about today the successes that my members have had on my forum. Now you're going to hear a few stories out there, oh, Chris doesn't know what he's talking about, or you're going to hear that sort of thing, but you really and truly will hear that sort of thing from people that have not participated, have not taken the effort, have not put in the hard work. You're going to find that information from anyone out there that is either trying to take our technology and claim it as their own, or from people that really are just not out there to help anybody. Now I say this because I've had such a struggle in all the time that I've tried to do this. I've suffered many personal attacks. It's just been a real difficult road. My behavior in some circumstances has not been the best as well, but when you're being attacked by people all the time, you do tend to get on the defensive. So in my defense, some of my behavior that I've exhibited in the past is defensive behavior, to try and really protect myself and protect what I'm doing more than anything. You've got to realize that when you believe in something, and when you know that something is this important, when you know what you're doing is so extremely important for the human race, and people shoot it down really with no evidence, no understanding, no nothing, it does get frustrating. So this video really is just an update video. This video is about what's going on, what's happening. Obviously, if you're not privy to what's going on our forum, then you're not going to know too much about what's going on. The basic background, I've been doing this for a long time. 2011 was when I first discovered what this technology is about. 2011 I discovered bucking coils. I had some idea of this before 2011, but I never really investigated about it, which I should have. As a fresh researcher with very little experience, really not knowing how electricity works, it's very easy to overlook things that really need to be looked at. Okay, the very definition of current is kinetic energy, and that's what Nikola Tesla told us. Okay, current being charge moving through a wire at 6.24 times 10 to the 18th electrons per second past point P. Okay, so current, voltage is the charge density, obviously. Voltage is how many electrons are possible, or how many electrons are add charge, the basic charge of the electron adding. So if we have 10 electrons, you've got to multiply the singular charge by 10. Okay, and vice versa. Known as coulombs, and the figures are on my website if you want to look that up. Okay. So we've got to realize that electricity is the flow of charge through the wire. It's kinetic energy, as Nikola Tesla pointed out many years ago. There is actually a quote here somewhere. If static or kinetic, okay. If static, our hopes are in vain. If kinetic, and we know this to be certain, that it is a mere question of time before man will succeed in attaching the machinery to the very real work of nature. My friends, this is what we've done, and this is what we've been doing for quite some time. Okay, I want to show just a thread that we put together. This thread here, Builder's Guide to Above Unity Machines. Now, the Queen's English, pretty plain. Above, okay, pretty obvious what that means. Unity, pretty obvious what that means. And machines, obviously, machine is a machine, okay, whether it be an electronic, a mechanical, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, it's a machine. Okay, the Queen's English is pretty plain. There's no need to sort of get all upset about the definition of words and stuff when someone's just trying to be picky. Anyway, I urge every person watching this video, go through, read this thread, because this thread is really important. We've had many successes. People have come forward, people have said that yes, the information Chris is providing does work. Now it's super important. The key to anything is understanding. When you understand something, that's when the sky's the limit. If you don't understand anything, you don't understand what you're looking at, then you may as well step back and say, right, well, an experiment here is not going to work at this stage because I don't understand it. Okay, you can experiment all day long, and if you don't understand what you're doing, if you don't understand the logic behind what you're doing, then you have to be extremely lucky to make anything work. Okay, so I urge everybody, go through, read this thread. CD Sharp has been one of our longest followers. He's done by far huge amounts of work, shared it all on the forum, at least most of it all on the forum. So his work is definitely very high level, very skilled, very dedicated work to follow if you want to follow his work. Okay, one of CD Sharp's successes, you can read it in here. Basically he's replicated one of my coil experiments. Now in this thread we try to give people a bit of a path forward. That was really the goal. Now asymmetry, as we've talked about in past videos, asymmetry is where you really need to start focusing your mind, because every single electronic device out there is symmetrical. Okay, very few are asymmetrical. Asymmetrical meaning that there's not a one-to-one force equivalence. And what I mean by that is, for example, a heat pump would be asymmetrical. A generator, an electrical generator, is symmetrical. An electrical transformer, as we know them today, conventional transformer, is symmetrical. And with symmetry, you've got to always think it's equal and opposite, less losses. So the input energy is equal to the output energy minus the losses. Okay, so you're always going to have a below unity system. It's never going to be above unity, always going to be below unity, because it's symmetrical. So you need to make these machines asymmetric. Okay, and that's why we have 3 coils, 1, 2, and then the green one, 3. Now you don't have to do it this way. This is just a representation of one way to get to the end goal. Okay. Now, as we know, area under the curve, your micro and Berdorfer basically sort of helped me this morning, actually, understand a few new things. Now, I knew about the area underneath the curve. Basically, that's an integral. Okay, so every single point, we've been through this before again as well, but every single point underneath the waveform that's drawn on the scope. So for example, the 0 gradical line here, so every value that's been recorded above and below the line represent area. So area above the 0 gradical line and area below the 0 gradical line. Okay, so this is your scopes, the big dotted line here, this is your scopes 0 gradical line, and here's your trace 0 gradical line. So anything above or anything below is recorded as obviously a potential, which would be a voltage, and with that potential comes a reading, and with which I already knew. And what we learned this morning was that the integral of this represents the flux in the system. Okay, and I sort of knew part of that before, but didn't really quite know how it equated out to COP, and we worked that out this morning. For some people it's extremely simple. For me, I've never had to do it before, so therefore I've always done it the old-fashioned way. Anyway, this is about success. So what we really want to do is we really want to get people involved. The only way this is going to take off, the only way that this is going to really work, is if everybody starts getting on board. Okay, now there's a lot to read here, but you can sort of break it down, you know, just to sort of what you need to know. Okay, there's headings and subheadings. The Lorentz force, for example, I mean, you only need to sort of really go through and read that if you don't know anything about the Lorentz force. Okay, the sawtooth waveform. Sawtooth waveform is a defining energy waveform. Okay, and every time you have a sawtooth waveform, it would normally mean in most configurations that there is Lenz's law or something very similar to Lenz's law occurring in the system when there's more than one thing going on. So what I mean by that is, if you have an input coil and an output coil, you would normally see Lenz's law between the coils, and when there's energy transfer, you would normally see a sawtooth waveform in certain situations. The natural waveform is a sawtooth waveform. Okay, it's not a sinusoidal waveform, it's a sawtooth waveform, which is made up from many different harmonics and all that sort of thing. In one of my experiments, you can go through, can't quite remember where it is, and you can actually go through and see it. Some coils buck and some coils don't. I showed the waveform in very, very great detail and explain it, what's going on in that experiment. Alright, so I recommend go through, study up. Look, I'll be perfectly honest, those people that have done the work, those people that have done the reading, those people that have taken the time to understand what's being said and understand the basics, things like voltage, current, how current is sustained, e.g. input current is supplied to an input coil, the output coil will have a current, obviously depending on what the voltage is. Now by switching the input coil off, the output coil is switched off. Okay, so the output current is defined over time by the supply of current to the input, okay, which is perfectly normal. Everybody should know about that. But what people don't know about is that you don't have to supply the input current. Okay, to sustain a current waveform, you don't have to yourself supply that input current. That input current to sustain, to hold the current at a level, can be sustained by a separate coil, which is part of the asymmetrical regauging stuff here. So every action has a reaction, and every reaction has a counter reaction. This is important stuff. Part of asymmetrical regauging, part of how the system works. Okay. So the input coil. Now Tom Bearden said in a few of his videos, a few different times, that he uses the rise time and decay time, but this is more about rise time on the input coil. Now the rise time should be very important, because the rise time on the input coil defines the time rate of change, which defines the voltage on the output coils. So it's Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. So this is important. Your input coil is important, part of the behavior of the machine. Okay, just some background information: parallel wire, bifilar coil experiment. Again, this is part of the understanding. This is part of gaining an understanding to head towards what we're sharing. Delayed conduction. Really, to be honest, delayed conduction really is just the opportunity to let the coils do their natural process. because again, naturally what we know is every action has a reaction, okay, and that's the symmetrical version of Newton's laws. Okay, everyone was taught that in school. Every action has a reaction. Well, when you do it asymmetrically, you have to bring this statement up to speed, which means for every action you have a reaction. For every reaction you can have a counter reaction. So that's part of all that. Delay conducting and bucking coils. This is my experiment that I shared with people here. Diacoptics. Okay, diacoptics. Now, anyone that has done the study here, diacoptics came from Gabriel Cron. Gabriel Cron was Floyd Sweet's mentor. Okay. It's funny how information gets passed on down the age. Okay, measurements. Whatever you do, don't use RMS. Okay, RMS will not give you the correct measurements under most situations when you're dealing with these machines. A lot of people, even high-level electrical engineering people, will say use RMS, and it is not correct. Okay, you must realize that you've got to look at the waveforms. You've got to realize the energy coming back to the system. If you're using RMS, the energy coming back to the source, back to charge your battery or charge your power supply, will be counted as used energy if you're using RMS. You mustn't use RMS. Okay, you've got to look at area under the curve. You've got to look at the mean values, the average values, and then compare them to what your waveforms are doing, which really sort of basically means go look at the measurement thread so that you can understand what we're actually talking about. Okay, so Ohm's law, use Ohm's law because Ohm's law makes more sense than most of the laws all up. Okay, it holds in every instance that I've ever seen. When V or R change, obviously I is going to change. I being your current, V being your voltage, R being your resistance. So, and again, another very important and useful tool. My advice, stick to facts and logic. Okay, never ever run off down rabbit holes that don't hold water. Okay, I've done it before. I learned the hard way. I wasted a lot of money, a lot of time on fake nonsense. So please, I urge you, save your money, save your time, stick to the facts, stick to what you can prove, put those facts together, okay, and build a timeline, build a storyline to get to the end result. Okay, this is really important. Okay, to be honest, the credit here, this needs to be updated. Okay, every single member on the forum all needs credit. Okay, all members deserve credit. I did say that, but every single one, really important. Acknowledgements. Now, these people here are the people that have done the experiments, have achieved the goal. They all have varying different results. Okay, so not all of them have gone above unity, and you may not necessarily build above unity machines first up. There are a few tricks to it. For example, one thing that will hold you up is if you put too many turns on. You can't have too many turns, and I can't explain it. Look, there's things that I still can't explain even now. You've got to have a certain amount of turns. The length of the coil is important. Sometimes with really long coils you don't seem to get the same effects, okay, and that's to do with the H field. Your Micro and a few others on the forum have gone through and we've talked about that. But everybody here has got a successful machine doing what it needs to do with varying different results. Now there's one or two here, one or two members on the forum that are not in this list that still have working machines, and the only reason I haven't added them to this list is because I can't reference to the post. Okay, the post that they may have said might be in a personal message. So there are many other members that have running working machines, okay, that are not in this list. Okay, so everybody, please, I ask you from the bottom of my heart, we can't do this alone. We need everybody to jump on board. We need everybody that wants to learn this. We need them to learn it. We need them to jump on board, share their work. We need them to be part of this movement, because without a solid force behind us, we just can't do it. Now, these people here have made history. Okay, this has never happened before in history that I know of. Never have we had so many successes, so many people reach the goal, so many people learn what is required to generate energy. Never before in history. We've always had one or two people come forward, show a machine, no one really understands it, and then it sort of disappears into history. It all gets too hard, there's too many skeptics, being shot down, they're discredited, all that sort of thing. So it all sort of gets too hard and it disappears. You know, sometimes it can be 20-30 years before we, you know, get another one come forward. So it's time, people, it's time, and this depends on you. If you want to come forward and you want to make a difference and you want to be part of this list here, then please come and please help us. So with all of our machines that we've worked on, I have put our machines and other people's machines as well, including Tin Man's, including Graham Gunderson's, Russ Land's, Tom Bearden's, or the Tom Bearden team. You know, everybody that's achieved above Unity and shown machines that are looking good, I have put all of these people on the list. So if you want to go through and if you want to have a look at the machines that we're sharing, then this is it. This is where you're going to find it. Okay, now this is what I was talking about just before, about the volt seconds. Okay, and I knew about the area under the curve. Obviously, again, your trace zero gradical line is a very important place to look at, because anything above the line, okay, is potential energy. Anything on the line is zero, anything above is positive, anything below is negative. Okay, input here, output here. Fairly obvious that looking at where the zero line is, there's a lot more energy in this top trace, a lot more potential than what there is in this trace. Okay, even though there's still a fair bit of energy in here, there's nowhere near as much as here. Okay, this is Berndorfer's. You can see that we were talking about converting the cycle area, okay, which is volt seconds. Okay, volt seconds is the potential again, and the cycle area can be converted to Webers by these equations. Okay, so that's the flux. That's the flux that's moving in the system. Okay, and again, if you've got more flux in the system that's moving than what your input has put into the system, then very clearly you have more energy total in the system. You've got to remember that flux is equal to Ni, which is ampere turns, N being turns, I being amperes, and obviously ampere turns, the more ampere turns there is, the more energy is in the system. Okay, and again it comes back to asymmetrical. It's got to be asymmetrical. You can't do it if it's symmetrical. Imagine if it was symmetrical, your output would be exactly equal to this spike here, but smaller, because there'd be losses in the system. So we do have a spike there, and the spike is smaller. You can see the spike smaller, okay, to this spike here, but we have all this energy all the way over here as well. Okay, so from that zero line there, this is just one example of many. Okay, these are the machines that we've been working on. All of us here have successful working machines, right? And people can dispute it all day long, but it's been happening for many years now. 27th of November 2018 is when I started this forum. That's when things went a little bit pear-shaped on over Unity. Overunity.com. I had this site as a backup. Took me a few weeks, few months to get this up and running. Since then I've been back to over unity.com, but there's just a lot of people over there that are so extremely difficult. I just can't believe how difficult they are over there. Anyway, it's really is a case of just trying to put them behind us and moving on. And this is what we're doing, people. Okay. The simplicity of this is, if you get in, if you learn it, if you build small, simple systems, okay, and you got to realize that small, simple systems, they might be very cheap to put together, but the smaller it is and the more simple it is, sometimes the harder it is to measure. Okay, but the scopes these days are about as good as they've ever been. And honestly, a cheap scope, 50 megahertz is plenty. I mean, you can see this is only this is measured at 30 kilohertz, which is well within the bandwidth of a 50 megahertz scope. So look, the simplicity of this is we are showing figures, we're showing machines, we're showing results that no one else in history has ever shown. Okay, and it really is up to you now to get on board, to come learn, participate. Okay, for example, I have put this thread up. This post here is just one post of many, but you can see here, a cooler, he showed all his machines self-running themselves. Look, honestly, I mean, I don't think we need to do that. I think we've got enough information on the website that people can pretty easily come to a conclusion to what we really have running behind closed doors. Again, some much better than the others, but it really does come down to experience, to how much people want to learn, to how much effort people want to put in, which is something that C.D. Sharp himself has said as well. It's all about effort. It's all about how much you want to put into it. This result is perfectly achievable, easily achievable, if someone puts their mind to it. Okay, if someone wants to learn. Okay, and again, this is, you got to know Lane's law. You got to know voltage. You got to know current. You got to know how current is sustained. Again, input coil and output coil. If the input coil is got current moving this way, then the output coil is going to have current moving that way. As soon as you switch the input coil current off, okay, by disconnecting the voltage, then the output coil is going to be switched off as well. Okay, it's just basic elementary science. So again, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Newton. If we make it asymmetrical, okay, this is just one way of many to do it. Doing it fighter's way, doing it a cooler's way. There's many different ways. Okay, there's lots of different ways to get to. Many roads lead to Rome, basically. Okay, now this explains Tero Capanazzi's work as well. Okay, so we've got turns counterclockwise, and then on top we've got some turns folded back on themselves clockwise. So clockwise, counterclockwise. There is a turns different. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. I did calculate it out at one stage. It was something like about 3 to 1 or something turns, I think, from memory, something along those lines, but I can't remember. So for every 3 turns counterclockwise, there's 1 turn counterclockwise, I think, from memory. But anyway, you'll need to check that if you want to have a look at it. Jim Gates, this guy's he's a professor. He's highly educated, like got many degrees, and he's said it as well. The magic happens when you break symmetry. This guy is one of the smartest guys I think I've ever seen. Unbelievable. He did used to consult for the President of the United States. Okay, I'm not sure if he still does it, but he did used to. Very high level, top level scientist. Real smart guy. So we've been told this before. Symmetry. We've got to break symmetry. Okay. Broken symmetry and asymmetry is the same thing. Okay. To break symmetry means you have asymmetry, which is the opposite, if you like, of symmetry. Okay. Remember, symmetry is bad. Symmetry is bad, again, for the same reasons I went through before. Equal and opposite, less losses. So always going to be a below unity system if there's a symmetrical system involved. Got to make it asymmetrical. Okay. And down the bottom, all I sort of say is join us, participate, be part of the future. Learn something that is so simple that we should have known this over 100 years ago. And we probably did, and it's probably been covered up that many times as just a joke. Okay, so I urge everybody, learn the basics, learn Lenz's law, learn the right hand grip rule, learn how current and voltage work. Okay, because that's the key. You've got to learn the basics to be able to understand how this works. Okay, to get a current flowing, you've got to have a voltage. Okay, again, Ohm's law. Okay, I equals V over R. The resistance of the wire, the resistance of the load might not change, but as you change the voltage, the current will go up. Okay, so increase the voltage, the current will go up for the same resistance. It's all extremely simple stuff. Once you put your mind to it, once you learn the basics, we have covered more than enough basics on this website. I mean, even Lockheed Martin are looking at technologies. Well, to be honest, I believe that they've been doing these technologies for a long time. But if you go through, have a look at this video, you can see sort of what sort of thing they're pointing to. I mean, they're not showing, but what they've got is pretty high level stuff. You would be pretty surprised. I think Ben Rich, it was said a little while back, we've now got the technology to take ET home. Okay, Ben Rich, I'm pretty sure it was Lockheed, used to be the top man of Lockheed. So everybody, I'm asking you, this is from me to you, come and join us, be part of the builders, be part of AboveUnity.com. Okay, we've got the technology, we've shown it time and time again, we've got so many members that have replicated this stuff. Honestly, if there was anything dodgy going on here, this stuff would be all across the internet by now. But there's nothing dodgy going on here. This is all legitimate. Every single one of these members down here that have replicated this work would have nothing but good stuff to say, and basically they all agree. They've all come out at one stage or another and said yes, it works. Now 1, 2, well, maybe it's a mistake, but when you get to 12, 15 or more, and you got to realize, there's, like I said before, there's a lot behind the scenes that don't have their name here, that don't have posts showing what they've got, because they don't want to become, public target. So there's a lot more in the background. I mean, there's a trend here, and anybody with a logical mind can see what the trend's doing, can see how logical this is. I mean, all you need to do is, how are you going to get a 100 kilogram cart up a hill? If you have two carts, both 100 kilograms, one going down the hill, one going up the hill, both connected from a big wire or something like that, then what goes down the hill must pull the other cart up the hill, sort of thing. It's that simple. It's that sort of science that you need to think about. Okay, asymmetry. It's about pushing as many electrons down the wire one way as what's flowing up the other way. Okay, it's about supporting the mass, supporting them, because every electron has a mass, very tiny, but when they all add up together, they all have a mass. Floyd Sweet said it in his paper. It's about supporting the mass. Okay, mass being flow of electrons, kinetic energy. Okay, it's like a bunch of marbles, racing down a pipe. How do we get them to move? We put pressure behind them. So same deal. Look, it's real straightforward. People need to get on board. People need to learn this. People need to build, share their work. The more people that do this, the brighter our future is going to be, and much quicker. Honestly, in the next few months, the future could change drastically if we had enough people come and learn and build what we are sharing. We've been doing this for a long time. Like I said, 2011 was when I first started working on this technology. November 2011. I have a lot to learn still. I don't know it all, but I know a lot. I do know a lot. Okay, and what we've shared with you is more than enough to get these sorts of things happening and occurring, to get an output. Okay, so it's extremely simple to get this working. It's not hard, but it does take understanding. It's the understanding that's the key. Okay, like Tom Bedden told us years ago, decades ago, electromagnetic engine regauging. It's refueling the machine. That's all it is. That's all it is, and it's all most of these machines are. Most of these machines, and many roads lead to Rome, but they all might look a little bit different, but the end result is all the same. You can't have current and voltage coming out of a wire unless the actual catalyst to make that work is not the same. Okay, charge, or any electron has a charge. Every charge has a magnetic field. Every charge has mass. Okay, like I said before, the electron's got mass. So to make that move down the wire, there is a certain phenomena that's got to be aimed for, that's got to be used to achieve the end result. There's just nothing out there. You can't throw different science techniques at it to get the same end result unless you know what I mean. It's crazy. Anyway, look, this video is about success. This video is about learning. This video is about the future of humanity. We are going to need, humanity as a whole are going to need to step up. We might, if we realize we might have a lot of problems in society, and to fix these problems, there's two things that we need to step forward. We need education and we need technology. Okay, that will fix the problems. It will fix all the problems. Poverty's got to go. We can't have the top 1% anymore. Everybody's got to be wealthy. Everybody. So to fix society's problems, we need education and we need technology, and this is part of it. Power, water. I mean, for example, this post here, the X Prize, fresh clean water from air generator. So we can get water without even having to drill a hole in the ground, through the humidity in the air. Okay, so these up to 300 gallons a day in some of these machines, sucking water, fresh clean water out of fresh air. Okay, so it's the technology is there. We as a species need to wake up, and we need to realize that these technologies are already here. Okay, the future is now, and we can do it if we all do it together. We've got to do it together. Alright, everybody, stay safe, stay well. We're in dire times, so now's the time that these sorts of things really are needed. The future, what the future brings, what the future holds, it could be quite dire. We've seen some terrible times, so hopefully with education, with the technology, we can make the future better instead of having to go through worse and worse and worse all the time. Alright, best wishes everybody.